ready for part 1 of our apple assignment. So we've done vases, and we've talked about roses to go inside of a vase. Then we did bowls. These apples are going to go inside the bowl. So the goal is that you get good at making an apple look round and making it have some value, some lightness and darkness. The tricky thing about apples is to figure out how to do the curves to make it look even all the way around. The best way to know how to do that is to talk about spheres. A sphere is like a 3D circle. Look at this sphere here. Do you notice that the outside edge is one big curve and that the inside curves all mirror the outside curve? See how this curve goes down and then each curve inside follows it? Same with the top and the bottom. The best way to explain that is with a drawing. So if I had a curve, a circle, what I'm saying is that each of the curves around would follow that same pattern. See how I'm starting at the top and I'm going down and around? Same with the top and the bottom. I'm going to follow this top curve. And below? It's not perfect, but you get the idea. To really make it look round, we need to talk about shading. So this sphere here has a couple points you should know. First, it's got the highlight. You have to imagine that there's a light source hitting it, like a lamp, and where it hits the brightest is the highlight. That will be the lightest point in your drawing. Underneath doesn't get much light. That has the shadow. If you look closely, it's not the darkest point. Darkest point is often in the cast shadow, where the light gets blocked from the circle. If you look even closer, you can see that a good cast shadow has a couple things. It gets smaller towards the end. It's not perfectly round just like this. And it gets lighter the further you get away from the sphere. It should be crisp and dark right next to the circle and then get lighter. There's a couple ways to do value and shading. We've talked about hatching, where you go one way, cross hatching, where you go one way and then the other. We've also talked about stippling. Stippling is with the dots. And the closer the dots are together, the darker it looks. Today we're going to do blending. Blending is just a fancy word for smearing. This is the thing that I found the most helpful to help me figure out how to do blending on a circle sphere. Here's a circle, and what they've done is they've made a series of smaller circles inside of it. Notice how it's not like a bullseye or a target, where the middle circle is right there and then it gets bigger. It's off to the side. Usually when you see a picture of something, the light source is at the side, because it'd be weird if the photographer taking the picture has the light source right behind them. Usually the lights are over to the side. See how it gets darker to lighter? Once you figure out how to do this shading, we can do a future lesson for how to do that in an apple. So let's talk about shading here. I'm going to show you how to do it in black and white and color. So for color, I like to use pastels. We're using chalk pastels. If you pick up your pastel and it feels oily or it's hard to rub your finger across, you have an oil pastel. You should have something that feels chalky. It should make a mark on your hand. What color should I pick? Good question! I recommend either picking all similar shades of one color, like you could do dark blue, medium blue, and light blue, or colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, just like we did for our tiles. Let's begin. I want you to draw one colorful sphere on a piece of free draw paper. I've found it works best to make it about the size of a cutie. You know those little clementines? If you make it too much bigger, it takes forever to shade. And if you make it too much smaller, it's hard to tell where one color goes and stops. If you're having trouble making a circle, draw a light until you know it's right. Go over it a couple times. I'll start with the red, the darkest color. I'm putting my line up on the left side, dark, heavy, it's thick. Notice how I'm making it rounded, just like the round sphere we looked at earlier. Very thick on this side. The line is thinner, it's not as wide on this side. I'm coloring hard. It should be that you see little flakes of the pastel. Next, orange. Following that same curve. See how I go over the same line a couple times? Those little bits that flake off, those make it good for blending. Let's finish with the yellow. I want you to notice how I'm not using the tip of my oil pastel or my chalk pastel, but I'm using the side. I'm going to do that when I do pencils too. I'm going to use the tip. No. Side. Have you ever used a notebook before and written really hard, and then when you flip the page, you can see the marks from where you were writing? The problem is, if you make those little holes in your paper, when you go to blend it, the pastel dust is just going to get stuck in those holes. So that's why we use the side, so it can be smooth along the paper. I'm really filling up the middle with a lot of yellow. But even though I'm doing the shape, I'm still going rounded. I can use my finger to do some blending. Even as I blend, I'm going to go around. I'm going to go starting at the side, and I'm curving my hand until I get to the middle. Spend some extra time blending where the two colors meet. Get those edges. To make it even better, sometimes I like to add a little bit of brown, just to make like a shadow here. Just a little bit. Let's blend that in. And I add a little bit of white to where that highlight is. Sometimes I blend it in, sometimes I leave it. If you're not getting it light enough, you can use an eraser. You can do the same thing in black and white, and here's how. Remember how we talked about making it lots of circles that get smaller? Well, you can take one color, Make your circle, size of a clementine. You could make lots of smaller circles to help you get the spacing right. And then push really hard here. Color it all the way in. No white space. Pushing hard. Little bit less hard here. Still mostly colored in. Even less and hardly at all. And now when I blend that, it looks more 3D. Find my highlight, erase there if I choose, or even add that fancy white. Make it look really bright. Let's add a shadow. I was doing this demo yesterday. I made this drawing, and I thought it looked pretty good. I went home and I showed it to my friend, and he's like, Katie, you messed up. And I was like, no, I mean, I did it quick. It's fine. He said, no. Look, if you're saying that's where the highlight is, that's where the light is hitting it, why would you have a shadow there? It's backwards. I wouldn't put my shadow on this side. I have to put the shadow on this side. So sometimes make a line, like a table. And then remember how I said it gets pointed at the end? And how I said it's crisp here? And then lighter. Curving those lines. Always curving those lines. Blending it in. Go in and add a little bit. Now it has a shadow. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take that free draw paper. I want you to try one time doing it with different colors. Shades of one color, colors that are next to each other, you pick. And then I want you to try using one color. It's easiest to do gray. If you want to do just one color of purple and push harder and lighter, that's an option. But your first assignment is to do these two spheres. Show me the highlight. Show me the shadow. Show me the blending. Show me how it's round in every single line. Show me that cast shadow. All right, good luck.